Well, let us take the Master's statement to Pilate, "Thou couldst have no power over me unless it came from the Father." Well, now, let's look at the facts. Pilate is the governor. Pilate is endowed with all the authority of Caesar. Pilate is judge and jury. That's what the appearance is. Yet the Master says, "Thou couldst have no power over me except it came from the Father." Now that is exactly what we are saying here. Man has no power to be just or unjust, to be good or bad, to be sinful or pure. He has no power to be sick or well. Why? Because all power is in God, cometh forth from the Father, within the Father in heaven. Now, the moment you begin to perceive that point, you begin to withdraw power from concepts, from forms, from persons, from conditions. That's all done by you consciously. There's no power outside of you that can do it for you. It is you yourself who must learn to look out at man. You might look at Stalin, or you might look at your favorite peeve, and just look right at them, as the Master looked at Pilate, and say, "Oh no, I see now that you are a concept, you're an image, you're an effect, but the power is in God that made you. Even your thoughts haven't power. It's the God that makes your thoughts that has power. You have no power. All power is in God." Now you learn to do the same thing with the condition of disease or sin or lack. You don't just close your eyes and say there is no such thing, or there's no reality in it. That's like the ostrich burying its head in the sand. You can't, by ignoring a thing, change yourself or the thing. You have to be willing to look any form of error right in the eye. Any form. I don't care how ugly its appearance. I don't care how nasty or how threatening it is. Man with a gun in his hand. Look right straight at them with the conviction, you have no power. God has the power. The God that directs you, that moves you, the God that is your mind, and the God that is your soul, the God that is your spirit, the God that gave you life, the God that gave you mind, that is where the power is. And so you look at a condition and you say, why, where did you come from? You're an effect. You're not a cause. You're in effect, something produced you. Whatever produced you is the power. Now what could produce you if God made all that was made and nothing was made except that which God made? Then only God could have made it. You say, did God make disease? There isn't any disease. You're not looking at disease even when you see disease, any more than you're looking at water when you see the water on the desert. The mere fact that you see water on the desert doesn't mean you're looking at water. You're looking at a mirage. And there's no power in a mirage, and you know it. Now, when you're looking at a disease or feeling a disease, you're not really looking at a disease. You're not really feeling a disease, because there isn't any. How can there be an infinite God good and a disease? Make up your mind. Have one or the other. An infinite mind God, good, and everything is made in God's image and likeness. So even when you're looking at what the world calls a disease, you're not looking at disease. You are looking at an image, a mirage, an illusion, an appearance, if you like. And there's no power in it. And it is in that realization that healing takes place. Not in denying it, not in turning away from it, not in trying to rise above it, but in looking right at it and saying God made all that was made, and all that God made is good, and anything God didn't make wasn't made. And so, whatever you are, You have no power because the God that made you is the only power. Now be sure that you don't go back to mental science and say, oh, there's a mental cause for a physical disease, or you'll have two causes and you'll have two chapters of Genesis, and then you'll be in trouble again. You see, the second chapter of Genesis is not God's creation, it's man's concept of God's creation, and that's where all the trouble comes in. Man looks at it and gives it a name in accord with his concept of it. And then he says, oh, you're a snake and I fear you. And from then on, he lives in fear of a snake. But a few rare people in the world say, well, God must have made a snake too. And a snake is never poisoned by snake poison. They're full of it, but they're not poisoned by it. So maybe it isn't poisonous in the snake, it's only poison when I accept it as poison. I accept that concept of it. As a matter of fact, they take that poison out and make remedies. It's a strange world when you stop to think how we fear a snake bite, and the doctor takes the same substance and puts it into us with a needle and cures us of something. Now, it's all a matter of concepts. What you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell is not God's creation. It is not God's creation. It is a concept of God's creation, and there's no power in it. There's no power in anything that you can think about. See, hear, taste, touch, or smell. All power is in God. Now, as you persist in that day in, day out, day in and day out, it becomes a matter of conviction. We are told, of course, a great deal about secrecy. And the reason is, just like planting a seed in the earth, that you bury it and you leave it there. You don't dig it up to keep looking at its progress. You leave it buried in the earth. And in that darkness, it breaks open and takes root, and all the rest happens after that. Well, so it is with us. We take this seed of truth into us now. And that's all this is. This is a seed of truth entering consciousness. Now, we should not discuss it with anybody, because that's like digging up the ground and looking at our seed. We don't discuss it with anybody. We keep it secret and we keep it sacred within our own being. And we ponder it, think about it deep within our own being. And we practice it until it has a chance to prove itself. Now, all anyone has to do is to realize this, first of all, that, well, the Master put it this way: why callest thou me good? There is but one good, and that's the Father in heaven. All right? If you are not to call Jesus good, then don't call any man good. Don't call health good. Don't call wealth good. Don't call man good. Don't call happiness good. Call only God good. In other words, don't ever call any effect good, because the good is in the cause. Now, once you see that, you'll understand that it's just as erroneous to look at anything and call it bad. If it isn't good, it isn't bad. Why? Because if it hasn't any good power, it hasn't any bad power, because all power is in God. Now, the moment you can take good power out of an effect and bad power out of an effect, you have obeyed Jesus on 2 points. You're not calling him good, you're calling God good. And you're not fearing the evil of Pilate, because you're recognizing God as the only power. So you've extracted good from effect, and you've extracted evil from effect, and now you have all power in God. Now, it is a very difficult practice, very difficult, to learn to look at people and events and prevent yourself from calling them good or evil. We are so built up in our humanhood of the conviction that everything and everybody is either good or evil, that we immediately look at them and then pronounce judgment. Now, we're not always correct, even humanly, in our judgment. I think it was in the East, in New York, some years ago, where they had a newspaper contest, or it was in a magazine, where they published 24 photographs and had you pick out the prominent people and the criminals. And it would be very sad to see what a job the psychologist did with it. You see, there is no way of judging righteous judgment by appearances. And so we come to one of our great points here, given us by the Master. Judge not after appearances, judge righteous judgment. And so, don't look at what looks to be a good condition and judge it to be good, because it isn't. Its only goodness is in God. Don't look at an evil and call it evil, because you're only judging by appearances. You have no knowledge of what lies behind appearances. So it is a matter of training oneself to be able to look at human appearances of both good and evil and say, neither do I judge you. Neither do I declare you to be good or evil. All I will go is say you must be spiritual, since God created all that is, and God is spirit. Do you see? Watch, because it is on this basis that our practice is conducted, our healing work. You know that it is possible for a man to pass an insurance doctor's examination for insurance today and drop dead next week of heart disease? And the doctor had judged from appearances. According to all his instruments, there was harmony there. And none of his instruments detected the discord. On the other hand, how many people have been condemned to die? Oh, they won't live a week, they won't live a month, and here they are and the doctor's gone. Because, again, they were judging by appearances. The doctor says you can't live a week or a month, but he doesn't know what is going on in your consciousness that is operating to defeat his judgment. That happened to me in 1921. I was given 3 months to live. I was examined at St. Luke's Hospital in New York by the head doctor and his assistants, and they said the most I could hope for was to live till October or November of 1921. They missed it by a little. And but the thing was this, that probably judging matter by matter, they may have been right. But they didn't know me. I just wasn't ready to die, that's all. And so, when they couldn't do anything about it, I just hied myself over to a Christian Science practitioner, and in 3 months I was healed. There are forces at work that doctors don't know anything about. Yeah, but there are forces at work that you and I don't know anything about, or we know too little about. And so there is no use of judging by appearances. Here was this Stardaily, a criminal in jail, and today a metaphysical lecturer on the spiritual platform. And you know, when the parole board judged by appearances, when he came before them, they said he can't be let out under 32 years, he's so bad. 3 years he was out, and you all know him, most of you. Now, it is the same way that anyone may be a sinner today and a saint tomorrow. Anyone may be dying of disease today and have life eternal tomorrow. It isn't a question of what you or I judge by appearances. If we want to judge righteous judgment, the truth is this: God is your life, so you're eternal. That's the truth. But if I were to say, oh, you're in good health today, or you're in bad health, or you have integrity today, or you haven't integrity today. I'm judging by appearance. I don't know the reality of you. I only know the appearance of you. Now, by withholding judgment, by not judging you, and this is all based on the Master's way of healing, by not judging you, by neither judging you nor condemning you, I say, I know nothing about you except that you're made in the image and likeness of God. I don't know if you're good or bad, I don't know if you're sick or well, but I know you're made in the image and likeness of God, and I stand on that. All that God is, you are. All that God has, you have. God constitutes your being. I can't see that with the eyes. No. But with my eyes, I can only judge by appearances. I could even judge how old you are and how many years you have left to walk on earth. But I could only do that with my eyes and human judgment. And then you turn around and fool me. Do you see what I mean? There's no such thing as judging by appearances, because you are what you are. And what you are is God manifest, God expressed, God being, Christhood. That's what you are. So whether I say you're good, I'm wrong. If I say you're bad, I'm wrong. If I say you're healthy, I'm wrong. If I say you're not healthy, I'm wrong. You're spirit. That is the truth. And now, since I don't know what spirit is, I'm not judging any judgment. I'm just making the declaration of what you are. Do you see that? Oh, I don't know what spirit is, so I still have no judgment of what you are. You don't know what spirit is either. You don't know what soul is. You don't know what consciousness is. So the moment you say, well, you are soul, you are saying you are what you are, and I don't know what it is. I have no judgment whether it's good or bad or short or long. I only know you are soul, spirit, life. And that's having no condemnation, no criticism, no judgment, no praise, no flattery, nothing. You're just stating the truth. You are spirit. And that's the only truth there is. The moment you qualify that and say good, bad, rich, poor, healthy, sick, young or old, you are in the realm of judgment, of concepts, of appearances, and you'll make no progress that way. Now, do not try to understand with the mind what God is, because there's no way to do that. Once you get to that silent place at the center of your being, God will reveal itself, but you'll never be able to put it in words, even after you experience it. So there's no use trying to think about it with the mind. And so it is, do not try to think of what man is, because you won't ever know. You'll never figure that one out, because man is the Son of God, and you don't know what the Son of God is. Man in his true identity is Christ, and you don't know what Christ is. Why? Because the things of God are foolishness with man, and so the spiritual sonship of man never reveals itself to human identity. And that brings us to a question that came in the mail this morning. What about man's dominion over the earth? Do you know the man that was referred to, that God gave dominion to? It was the man in the first chapter of Genesis who was made in God's image and likeness. That's the man who was given dominion. Mortal man was never given dominion. Material man was never given dominion. A human being was never given dominion. But the image and likeness of God, God made in man's image and likeness, was given dominion, and that is the man you are when you stop thinking about appearances. You are only the image and likeness of God when you stop having concepts, when you stop having opinions or beliefs about this universe. When you are sitting back here and have said, "Speak, Lord, thy Father, thy servant heareth," now your mind is entirely free of any opinions or judgments out here. Now you're the Son of God. Now you're in tune with the infinite. Now all that the Father hath is pouring itself through to you. God does not impart itself to human beings, because if God did, there wouldn't be a sick one or a sinful one, there wouldn't be an accident, there wouldn't be a war. Humanhood is something separate and apart from God, or it wouldn't be in trouble. God's image and likeness isn't in trouble. God's image and likeness isn't dying. God's image and likeness isn't poor. God's image and likeness isn't on a battlefield. And you are only God's image and likeness when you have learned to stop thinking good and evil. That's when you are the image and likeness of God. When you are not thinking good and evil. When you are labeling nobody and no condition as either good or evil, then are you the child of God. And then you have dominion over everything. Now, what is everything? Everything is concept. Everything that exists on earth is concept. Everything on earth is a concept. So that since you really and truly are God's image and likeness, I have no control over you. But since I'm sitting up here entertaining a human concept about you as being young or old or rich or poor or sick or well, I have dominion over my concept of you. And the moment I have attained dominion over my concept of you, I behold you as you are, and I'm satisfied with that likeness. In other words, you haven't been changed, because you were the Son of God all the time since before Abraham was. All that has changed now is my concept of you. And that's what constitutes healing. We have no power over anybody. God never gave one person power over another, even for good. Our dominion is over our concepts of each other. If you see a man stealing and you call him a thief, you have dominion, and he'll be a thief to you. And you will have exercised your dominion in judging by appearances. But you have dominion to change that concept. And you can withdraw and say, I do not judge by appearances. I judge righteous judgment. And what is righteous judgment? God is the reality of your being. And now you've deprived that person first of the power to be dishonest with you, and then secondly to be dishonest at all. That's what is called healing. Now you haven't changed the individual. You have changed the concept of the individual. You've withdrawn judgment. You've said, neither do I condemn thee. Why? I would have condemned you if I'd thought you were doing something wrong. But I know thee who thou art, Christ, the Son of God. And so you had dominion over your concept. Now let's take it and let's have dominion over the concept called disease. The concept of disease is that it is fatal. Even little ones become big ones and become fatal. That is the concept of disease. The concept of germs is that they spread disease. There is infection or contagion in germs. That's the concept of them. All right. Now, exercise your dominion. And say, wait a minute, let's look at these little fellas. Who made you? If you're made at all, God made you. If you have any life at all, it's God life. If you have any intelligence at all, it's God intelligence. Because all power is in God, not in you. You have no power. You are effect. You are concept. I am not going to judge by appearances. I'm going to judge righteous judgment. What is righteous judgment? All power is in God. Now, you haven't done anything to the germ. You've exercised your dominion over the concept of germ, and that germ goes merrily along, but it doesn't infect anybody. It doesn't hurt anybody. It doesn't harm. All of us who have been in the healing work have had loads of healings over infectious diseases, contagious diseases. Even some have helped to stop the spread of infection and contagion in school and in epidemics. Everyone who's ever worked in the flu season, in this work, in spiritual work, has proven that the infectious or contagious germ isn't infectious or contagious. That that's only a concept about it. And so it is You do not judge. You don't condemn. You don't get rid of germs. No, you judge righteous judgment. You look at them and you say, well, here you are, effects. Oh, well, that settles it right there. If you're an effect, you can't be a cause. And if you're an effect, you can't have power. Well, now look, here's an illustration of it. Here's my hand. Let's call that what it is, an effect, isn't it? You understand that it's an effect? Do you believe for a minute that's the cause? No, it's an effect. Now, can it pet or can it punch? No, it can't do a thing except stay right here. Why? Because it's an effect. All the power is in me. I can pet or I can punch, but not the hand. Do you see that? I am the dominion over this. Well, now go up and down your whole body, and you'll find in the last analysis that God has dominion over your body. You see that? And then you'll stop believing that your body can get sick or your body can get old, because it's an effect. It has no power. It of its own accord has to stay this way forever. Can't move. It has no intelligence. It has no desire to go to the right or left or up or down. There it remains forever until I say up or down, left or right. Do you see that? Now, it is true. No effect, including person, has power. The belief that we have power is what causes trouble. If I would accept the belief that I have the power to pet or punch, then you may be assured of this, that sometimes I'd be petting and sometimes punching. But actually I've surrendered that belief that I have such power. All power is God power, operating in my consciousness and my heart, my soul, my mind, and my body. And therefore, my hand isn't subject to my wishes or to my desires or my concepts. My hand is subject to God, divine intelligence. That's what keeps it out of trouble. So it is with the body. If you once believe that the body is subject to your control, you'll have sometimes a pure one and sometimes a sinful one, and you'll have sometimes a healthy one and sometimes a sick one, sometimes a young one and sometimes an old one. But the moment you give up your body and say, look, you're an effect, you have no power within yourself. All power is in God. Well, think of your heart. Can it stop itself or make itself go? No. The power, the heart just stands there, and something acts upon it and makes it go. That's something we call God. Now, the minute you would believe that you have power to make your heart go or stop, your heart would be fluctuating in accord with your desires of any given moment. No, that isn't the way it functions. Take back your heart from yourself and give it back to God and all the rest of the organs and functions of your body, and understand God made me in God's image and likeness, and my body is the temple of the living God. It's God-governed, God-controlled. And then you see, you are not judging after appearances. The appearances would indicate that the body could be sick or well independently of God. The body can't be sick or well independently of God once you have removed consciously power from effect. But no one can do that for you. Oh yes, a practitioner or teacher can do it and bring out a healing. But that leaves you where you were before, because tomorrow something else comes along. Jesus fed them too. And the next day they were just as hungry, and he had to feed them over again. But you see, you can have healings through your practitioner, through your teacher. But the day ultimately must come when you must assume your own burden. When you must consciously say, wait a minute, I can't live forever with a practitioner running around after me. Someday or other I must become God-governed. And why not begin right now? The only way you can do is to see this. Everything that exists, get this point now, everything that exists at the standpoint of effect. It exists as effect. All else is God, which is invisible. But so far as anything visible, whether you can see it, hear it, taste it, touch it, or smell it, it exists as effect, and there is no power in effect. All power is in cause. So don't hate it, and don't fear it, and don't unduly love it. If it's something on our level of goodness, enjoy it, but don't love it. Because even that which we're enjoying in it is of God. Remember what we said here, that you must never be too joyous about a healing or supply. Be joyous about the realization of spirit that manifested itself as healing or as supply. In other words, keep your joy in God, not in effect. Otherwise, you'll get like Hetty Green. Have $3 million down the basement and sit there looking at it, enjoying it, and afraid to spend 15 cents for lunch. You see, that's what comes of putting power in effect. That's what happens in our Hollywood outfit. Here comes a fellow along, and he marries the 5 most beautiful gals in town. He's putting all the beauty in their face and figures. And so he finds out first that, I guess I was wrong, it isn't there. And he tries another one. Before he's through, he's had 4 or 5 of the most beautiful. He says, I don't think it's out there at all. And it isn't. It isn't. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Life is in God. Love is in God. Satisfaction is in God. Peace is in God. Happiness is in God. Supply is in God. Love is in God. And it's only as these people go out and try to find it out here in persons or in dollars or in mansions that they lose their way. Now, healing is all based on not judging by appearances, not putting value in concepts, but in every case by realizing, yeah, you're all right, you're in effect, but you have no power. And that's why we had the lesson the other day, never try to get free from anyone or anything. Why should you? They haven't any power anyhow. And you will have your freedom in this truth. You will gain your freedom once you know. You won't get free from anything or anybody, but you'll get free the very minute you know that there never was power in a condition or a circumstance or a person. Then you find yourself as free as you're free on the desert from water once you know that it isn't water, it's mirage. Now you see, when you're free on that desert, you haven't become free from water because there wasn't any water there. And so it is when you discover that you're free from person or condition, it isn't really true, because there never was a person or condition there. You're freed now from a mirage, from a belief that there was a power outside of God, or a person or a presence outside of God. See, every person is the person of God or the presence of God, because God is present as person, as individual, you or me. So you don't have God and man, and you bring them together through this work. You have God appearing as man, and you realize that they always have been together since before Abraham was. Yea, though I make my bed in hell, thou art there. How come? Because I'm there. If I'm in hell, God is there, because I and the Father are one. You can't separate us. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, thou art there. Why? Because I am there. You're never going to get God and I separate. So if there has to be a hell, we're both going to be in it together because the both of us are one. If there has to be a death, we're both dying because there's only one. And that one is God. Yes, you must understand that God constitutes your being. You're not separate and apart from God and through this work going to get back to God. Through this work, you're going to awaken out of the dream that you're separate and apart from God. This work acts just the same as if you were asleep and dreaming and someone came and awakened you. If you've been dreaming that you were drowning in the ocean, their awakening you doesn't take the water away from you, and it doesn't take you out of the ocean. It reveals to you that you're home in bed. And so this work never takes you out of sin, disease, or lack. It wakes you up, and then you look around, I'm in heaven. Yes, you'd been there all the time, dreaming you were in hell. Now, we are in the dream as long as we are seeing person as having power, or as long as we are seeing condition as having power. As long as we are judging good and evil, we are in the dream. The moment we can wake up and say there is no such thing as good and evil, there's only spirit, we are out of the dream. Take my word for it, that as long as you judge anything or anybody by the terms of good and evil, you are in the Adam dream. The moment you can withdraw your judgment and say you're neither good nor evil, you're neither dead nor alive, you're neither rich nor poor, you're neither good nor bad, you're spirit, that moment you are waking out of the dream. And when the realization of that comes, the dream's no longer there. The whole secret lies in the fact that we individually and collectively must do it. That is why we have such small groups. This truth that I'm giving you, that I'm telling you, that has been revealed to us throughout the ages, is a truth that will really make man free. There's no doubt about that. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Man could be free of his sins, his diseases, his wars, his lacks, and his limitations right now, if you could get him to accept this. And I just think what would happen if I went down to the prize fight arena and told them this. It is only because the world lives in the dream, judges by appearance, and accepts it as real, and there's no way for us to convince anyone to the contrary until they themselves have made enough progress. Do you have ears and do not hear? Do you have eyes and do not see? Until you have an inner ear and an inner eye, until you have a spiritual awareness, there's no use of telling this to you, because you won't enjoy it, you won't believe it, and you won't demonstrate it. And that is why in this work, you don't go out of this room and tell people what you know. You won't bless them. If somebody comes to you and begs hard enough and really proves that they'll make a sacrifice, then you can begin to share some of it with them, because they mean business by then. Up to that time, they're just trying to be entertained or have their curiosity satisfied or have something more to ridicule. But when you see people giving up mornings or giving up nights or giving up dollars or giving up time and going here, there, and the other places to find truth, you know that something has touched them within, and then you can tell them any truth you want. That is why I have these groups in the morning. I don't want to say some of these things to our closed classes, people who haven't read the books thoroughly, people who haven't studied, people who haven't had a class. Why, some of this must sound as veritable nonsense to them. And I don't want them to hear these tapes. These tapes are for people who are far enough, the practitioner tapes are for those who are far enough along the line to know what I mean when I say stop judging by appearances, stop having good and evil, stop placing power in disease. You are supposed to be at that point now where it can be said to you. Why is that true? Because nobody invited you here. You brought yourself here. You put yourself in here. It was you. There was no urging, no coaxing, no promising that you'd find the kingdom of heaven or health, wealth, and harmony. You brought yourself here. Therefore, whatever brought you, we must understand to be the urge of God in you. And that means you are prepared to hear this message. Now, don't go out and give it to people who are 1 year behind you or 5 years behind you, or who have no interest, or who would try to understand it with their mind. No one can understand this with their mind. This is something that has to penetrate into your inner consciousness. The things of God, of truth, are foolishness with man. So don't try to go out and give it to some man or woman just because you'd like to take him into heaven with you. Because you won't get them there that way, and you'll deprive yourself of something. But hold this within your own being in secrecy and sacrecy until you demonstrate it. That which you realize in your inner being will be made manifest outwardly in demonstration, but not through speech. You can't go around with a sign on your back, I am good, or I am spiritual, because they're not going to believe it. But you can show forth what you have learned, and then they look at you and say, oh, you are good, or you are well, or you are better, or you are improved. Now, is it clear, first of all, that the things of the earth over which we have dominion are concepts, and that we don't have dominion out here? Don't try to make it rain out here or make it the sunshine out here. Don't try to make somebody well out here. Don't try to get somebody employed out here. All of this is done, the dominion is done within you. The kingdom of God is within you. So don't do it out here, do it inside your own being. And you do it by having dominion over your concepts. So that the moment you have a concept, and somewhere in it you find something good or evil, make up your mind right there to get busy. Because you must come to a place in your inner conviction where you no longer see it as good or evil, where you just either see it as being or see it as spirit. But you must withdraw your concepts of good and evil. Don't try to change evil into good, because you'll just have a different type concept, and tomorrow it'll be back on the evil side again, or next week or next month. Don't try to change any evil appearance into a good one. On the contrary, change all the good ones as fast as you change the evil ones. Don't be happy with a good appearance, because someday it will fool you and change to a bad appearance. If you look at a thing and see it evil, your natural reaction is to want to see it good, and you're in the wrong boat in either case. What you must do is look at it and not try to see it good, but to see it as spirit. Neither good nor bad. Spirit. What is spirit? I don't know. That's fine. Once you admit you don't know, there is the wisdom of ignorance. There's the wisdom of ignorance. Always be careful of a person who is sure they know metaphysics, because there isn't any there at all. Nobody knows any metaphysics. No matter what you know, it isn't true. And the sooner you begin to understand that, the better off you'll be. Somebody will say, you know God? No, I don't know God. How can God be known anyhow humanly? As a matter of fact, if God is infinite, what is it that would be knowing about God? An illusion would be knowing about God? I doubt it very much. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Be sure that you're wise in your ignorance. One of these books in the Bible has a lot to say about the folly of wisdom and the folly of ignorance and man's wisdom and so forth and so on. Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, they know all about this man. Solomon knew all about these people who are so wise they're taken in their wisdom. No. Don't be among those who know truth. No, be satisfied to let truth know itself in you. Let truth know itself in you. Don't you go knowing truth. Let truth know itself in you. You recognize your own nothingness. I can of my own self do nothing. If I speak of myself, I speak a lie. What do you think I'd be doing if I said I had understanding? I'd be speaking about myself, and I'd be bearing witness to a lie. It isn't I who have understanding, and it isn't my understanding that helps anybody. It's God's understanding that helps. Not mine, not yours. I'm perfectly willing to let God have all the understanding, because I've had periods when I thought I had some. No, you have no understanding, and you never will have. God is infinite understanding, and you just turn within and let God's understanding be revealed to you. Just be satisfied with that. And above all, learn that it is just as erroneous to label a thing good as it is to label it bad. Now that is why we have a series, a Honolulu series, that has the title of God Is. And that brings out this very point. You see, let us say you present yourself to me. Now, it would be a simple matter, humanly, for me to judge what you are, or who you are, or how you are. And of course, that would be error, because that would be my concept of you, and it still wouldn't be you. Well, I'll tell you how it all began. I was sitting at the breakfast table one morning with Don Blanding, and we were having this little discussion about the very thing that you do not ever pray to God, because there isn't any way to get anything from God, and there isn't any way to get God to change anything. So praying to God is kind of futile. And all of a sudden, I saw on our table a little jug of maple syrup. And I said, Don, what is that? Oh, he said, maple syrup. How do you know? Oh, well, it was an association of ideas there. They serve hot cakes, and they always have syrup around, so he was judging that it was maple syrup. Well, I said, that's your opinion then, huh? That's your concept. Yeah. But supposing we opened it and found it wasn't. Might be some other syrup, and maybe it isn't even syrup. What about that? Well, that could be too, of course. I was just judging by the fact that that's what you'd expect it to be. Yeah. Now, how about us withdrawing our opinion as to whether it's maple syrup, or even whether it's something good or something bad, and just make the declaration, it is. Now, not what it is. It's just is. Something is there. That's evident. Something is there. But I don't know whether it's good or bad. I can judge by appearance and say it's maple syrup and therefore it's good, but somebody else would say it's maple syrup and therefore I don't like it. So to them it would be still maple syrup, but it would be bad. But on the other hand, when you taste it, it might not be maple syrup at all. So we'd be all wrong on every count. But one thing we can say with certainty, it is, something is there. All right, now, if I had that jug before me, not knowing what it is, just knowing that it is, what I would do is, I would then sit back, say, Father, this is, but what it is, I don't know. And then from within would come some kind of an awareness or conviction, and I would either use it or throw it away. I still wouldn't know anything about it except the instinct that would come assuring me that it was good or bad or usable or not usable, and so forth. In other words, what it is would be revealed to me within. All I know is, it is. Now that is exactly the way I do with healing work. You present to me yourself or your condition. And frankly, I know nothing about that. I'm sure that I know less about anatomy than almost anybody in the world. And I certainly know less about all those things that make up what the world calls its ills. But you present yourself to me with your problem, and I turn within. And all I know is something is here. Now, Father, you define it. And usually I get that click, that awareness, which is just the same as if it said, this is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. Don't malpractice it. And when I get that, that is when the healing takes place. The moment I get the conviction within that you are the child of God, or there's nothing present here but the presence of God, and there's no power here but the power of God, that's when the healing takes place. Now, if I were to sit in judgment and call you bad, or your condition bad, or something, where am I to go? And what am I to do? Oh no. Spiritual healing consists of being able to face the world without an opinion of good or evil, retiring within and saying, Father, what is this? And then the Father saying, well, this is my beloved child, in whom I'm well pleased. Or the Father will say, well, this is the presence of God, or this is the power of God, or this is nothing separate and apart from God. No, it doesn't always come in words like that. It comes in the conviction or awareness of it. Just like we meet people and like them, and no words are exchanged. We don't say, I like you or you like me. We just have the awareness of a mutuality. Rarely does anyone voice such a thought as, I like you or do you like me. That's a rare thing. But there is a mutuality, an understanding without words, and so it is in healing. There may be a time when we'll say, I like you or I love you, but it's very rare. And so it is that it may be occasionally that God speaks to us in an audible voice, but it's rare. Mostly it comes as a conviction, and we abide in that conviction. All is well, or I am on the field, or thou art my beloved child. And all of this comes with your ability to have neither good or evil. Judge neither good nor evil. Judge not by appearances, judge righteous judgment. Well, you can't judge righteous judgment, because judgment belongs to God. Neither do I condemn thee, neither do I judge thee, neither am I a ruler over thee. Therefore, the righteous judgment must come from God, and it can only come in the degree that you are listening. As you are listening to me now, so in your inner silence you must be listening to God. And just as you hear me audibly, so you'll find in your inner self you'll either hear audibly or feel or sense or become aware of, and that's all that's necessary. Only be careful that you haven't prejudged as evil and turn to God for help, because here comes our little final secret today. God neither gives nor withholds. And there's no use of looking to God to give or to withhold, because there is no giving God and there is no withholding God. God is. And this is enough to know. God is. God is omnipresent, right here where we are. So there's no use of going to God to get God to be present. God is present where we are. God is omnipotent power of good. No use of going to God to get God to be good. There's no use of going to God to get God's power, because God is right here with all of God's power. The secret of this work lies in the word is. God is. Harmony is. Life is. Love is. Peace, joy, power, dominion is. Why? Because God is. God is infinite. God is omnipresence. God is omnipotence. God is omniscience. God knoweth your need before you do. And it is God's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. There's no use ever turning to God for anything. Turn within yourself for a realization that God is. I shall be satisfied with thy likeness. Or, thy grace is my sufficiency. Well, don't try to get God's grace. God's grace isn't something you can ever get. God's grace is something that is. God governs this universe by grace. Not by law, not by desire, not by will, but by grace. And so God's grace is omnipresent in our consciousness. And there's no use of praying for it or asking for it. Recognize you couldn't exist without God's grace. So God's grace is closer to you than breathing, nearer than hands and feet. The secret of this entire work is bound up in the word is. You can go back to Moses, of course, and put it in the term I am. That's just like saying is. I already am. Don't go seeking me. I already am. Let me catch up with you. Oh, that would be better. If only we wouldn't run away from God. If only we would sit still and let God catch up with us, because God is here closer than breathing. I already am mighty in the midst of you. I already will never leave you nor forsake you. I already am with you since before Abraham. All that I have is thine. Son, thou art ever with me. No use of searching for God, no use of seeking for God. Get still and let God reveal itself within, because God is already there, eagerly waiting to reveal itself, like sunshine is out there waiting for us to roll up the shades, like flowers are out in the park waiting for us to go over and enjoy them. It's already there. The fish are already in the sea, the birds are in the air, the crops are in the ground, the cattle's on 1,000 hills. Everything already is. All we do is inherit it. You are heirs of God, joint heirs. You don't work for it, you don't deserve it, you don't labor by the sweat of your brow. The belief that you must is what is causing all of this hard work in the world, and stealing from each other and cheating each other, or competing with each other, not caring if our competitor goes out of business as long as we stay in business. That's all wrong, and there's no need for it. No need. There are enough people within range of my consciousness to fulfill all that I shall ever need in the way of students or patients or dollars. But there's enough within range of Mrs. Clo's consciousness and Mrs. Jones's consciousness and Dr. Smith's consciousness. There is sufficiency for everybody within range of their consciousness. There's no such thing as dividing up. It's a multiplication from within. But there's only one way to demonstrate it, and that is by not trying to demonstrate it. That's all. You must give up all attempts at demonstration, because God already is. God already is. God already is fulfillment. God is already completeness. As a matter of fact, the statement says, God's grace is my sufficiency in all things. Now, why should we want anything else but God's grace? And we already have that. So it really means that my recognition that God's grace is my sufficiency is my prayer or treatment or communion. Does that begin to have a little clarity? Remember, any questions on this must be settled before this week is over, because today is an important day in our experience. And if you have any questions, any doubts, on any uncertainties, write them down. You don't have to sign them. We're not interested in personalities. And then the question is asked about having a manuscript of this class. And I don't know, I would like to, but whether or not it can be done on is a question. My secretary has enough manuscripts now to work on way into next March, and I'll be away until January, and I don't know how it's to be accomplished. So unless it's in God's plan and he can push it through without my knowing it, I don't know that it'll be any other way than on the tape. But